Okay, let's dig a little deeper now into the ways China is working to change the narrative about its role in the coronavirus pandemic with a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Arizona's Martha McSally. Good to see you tonight, Senator.
How are you, Shannon?
I am good. I want to ask you about this because, Real Clear Politics refers to this as basically a propaganda war. They say China is fighting a propaganda war. Shift away from China, all blame for the outbreak, the botched initial response, and its early spread into the broader world. After dealing with the first great global crisis of the 21st century, the world must fundamentally rethink its dependence on China. Senator, how do you see this playing out?
Absolutely. I've never trusted the Chinese Communist Party and their totalitarian regime. If they had actually done the right thing early on, so many lives would have been saved in their own country and now around the world. They have been on a path to try and have global dominance through many different sectors. And now, instead of taking responsibility and having transparency to stop this pandemic, now they're taking advantage of it. They could have come hat in hand with humility, perhaps, to help others after they screwed this up. But instead, it seems they're going on a propaganda campaign. And, some of our media outlets, unfortunately, are parroting that propaganda, trying to supplant us as in global dominance. And it's disgusting, but it's not surprising.
Yeah, and we don't know, although we feel like we're getting data from them that's helpful. At least the task force has said, in trying to figure out some of the things that are going on. But there's a lot of skepticism about what we hear from them. Here is what one of your colleagues, Senator Tom Cotton, is proposing now. He's been a tough opponent of China, of a lot of their practices, not the people necessarily. But here's what he says about how things should work moving forward.
China unleashed this plague on the world, and China has to be held accountable. That's why I'm introducing legislation that will say we're no longer going to buy our basic pharmaceuticals from China. There'll be a total ban on buying through the Department of Defense or the VA, Medicare, Medicaid, and so forth. And we're going to have incentives for manufacturers to start making those medicines right here in America once again. It's too grave a threat to let our health rest on Chinese drugs.
How quickly do you think that picks up speed? Do you think there'll be bipartisan buy-in on that measure?
I do. There's actually another bipartisan bill. I think we're all on the same page here. Marsha Blackburn has one I'm a co-sponsor of. But America is waking up that over the last decades, we've allowed ourselves to outsource things that are critical for our national security, our critical minerals, our pharmaceuticals, our basic medicines, our manufacturing for crises like this. And it has to stop. We have to bring that home. And for sure, when we're buying it for the Department of Defense and the VA, we can make that happen. We'll be marking up the defense bill at some point, and I hope we include that in this year's defense bill. But then we need to incentivize American manufacturing for these very critical capabilities. We have to move it home, and that needs to be one of the follow-throughs immediately from this crisis.
I want to ask you about the criticism that the president has taken for continuing to refer to this as the Chinese virus. He says in an opinion piece by Congressman Ted Lieu, who's a Democrat, not a fan of the president, says this: for the president to continue using rhetoric that the Chinese find insulting is not helpful. It is not one country's problem to solve. We are in a worldwide, life-threatening pandemic, and we all need to work together. I wish the president could set aside his xenophobia for the moment while we try to keep Americans from dying. How do you respond to these, kind of this pile-on to the president about using that terminology?
Well, just this week, China kicked out more American journalists. We still don't have information, Shannon, as we have Americans dying every single day about how this virus started. Who is patient zero? What do we really know about the actual death rate? We could have had scientists and doctors there right away. They're whistleblowers. They muffled, and then one of them, died. Mm-hmm. And we still don't have this information. So if China were actually, an honest actor in addressing this issue, it would be different. But they continue to be problematic to not help save lives in America and around the world. They need to be transparent and honest. Of course, we don't expect them to be. But until then, they're responsible.
It would be helpful. Yeah. Senator McSally, thank you for joining us tonight. Good to have you.
Shannon. Our prayers are with everybody right now who's suffering from the coronavirus.
Absolutely.
Yeah.